Alright, hello everybody and welcome to another round of LSR Group 1 action here on the Formula 1 game, where we head to the Temple of Speed in Monza with a very full lobby today, especially compared to some of the other races that we've seen. And we head into what will be a very interesting qualifying. As you can see, the rain is falling up here in the north of Italy. But glad to be joining you today. Of course, I am your host and commentator for the day, Vacant Haddock. And should be a very interesting one to watch, as B-Tom going to be the first driver to make his way out, and it's going to be likely inters for the entirety of the grid. From the sound of things, it does seem like it will be rain only in qualifying. It does sound like we will have a dry race. So certainly will be interesting to see there how the grid is potentially shaken up. But of course, Monza, definitely one of the simplest circuits on the F1 calendar, and specifically on our calendar. And going to be interesting to see how our drivers navigate all of the turns. Of course, Monza, the host of the fastest ever Formula 1 Grand Prix in terms of average speed. I believe it holds most of the top records in that category. You can see why really the only slow, of course, turns 1 and 2, that opening chicane, where you're likely to see a good chunk of entertainment on the opening lap. Of course, you have, after Curva Grande, you got the chicane at 4 and 5 as well. But it'll be interesting, especially with all of our drivers likely running 0-0 wings in the race. As, of course, in-game, you're not going to see the skinny front wings, those Monza spec front wings that they run in real life. But B-Tom will be getting us underway as we blast down this pit straight. Of course, going to be buzzing that limiter in the race. And of course, best overtaking opportunity is down here into turn number 1. Of course, got to get hard on the brakes, keep it really tight, really clean, and then traction. Super important out of turn 2, as as you still have an overtaking opportunity as you blast around turn number 3 here and down into turn 4. Going to be wanting to spot, in between that blue and green Aramco barrier on the right-hand side. They're slamming on the brakes. And again, really want to be attacking some of these curbs. Of course, B-Tom encountering a little bit of traffic up ahead here. Of course, most of these drivers likely taking some extra fuel here. It does seem like B-Tom may be backing off just a shade as he has caught some traffic here. Of course, coming into what normally is the second DRS zone, will be able to pass that McLaren. Of course, heading down here into the S's. And then it's just one more braking zone left to go down at Parabolica. Of course, don't want to run out too wide, get too much on that curve on the exit of the Ascari chicane. Again, just full throttle. Really only going to drop to 5th gear. You may see a couple drivers take Parabolica here in 6th gear. It will really depend on the conditions, as yellow flag for a McLaren getting out of the way. But B-Tom will remain the first driver to set a lap, and it's going to be a 32.938 from the Racing Bulls driver, and that's quickly surpassed by Rosticic with a 29.6. Got Williams of Lurka coming to line. He's just starting a lap, as is a majority of this field. Vanzantino just getting underway. Etzo in his debut underway. Illyrian, of course, back again. He will be in the Sauber today. Keep an eye on Nemi as he makes his way through, I believe, the Lesmo. As you can see, really fighting the rear end of that Red Bull, really trying to carry so much speed. Going to run a little bit wide there, and is going to invalidate. So no time on the board for the Red Bull. And I believe that will be driver number 20 in Shruz, or Tristan. So going to be interesting to see how he might stack up in these tricky conditions. BXT 28-ish through the first sector. We'll jump on board with Anthrax Robin in the Haas, just about keeping that within track limits. Definitely seem to be all over the shop. but going to pick up a nice little toe as well. Fight Me Now bot to the top of the order, though, with a 28.729. Definitely going to be interesting to see how quickly some of these lap times start to fall as track conditions improve little by little. Of course, the rain going to keep falling throughout the entirety of this lone 18-minute qualifying session. Soa goes top, but is quickly surpassed by Anthrax Robin. 28.609, the new benchmark for all of our drivers, and we got a number of them just finishing laps here. Vanzantino making his way through the exit of Ascari. Here comes Etzo to the line, and Etzo will jump to the top of the field, 28.508. So that's a good showing for him. I believe it was Stratton just coming to the line, but he invalidated there at Parabolica. So that'll be 2 laps invalidated. Here comes VXT, the Spaniard, to the line. Only 8th quickest. One of the Aston Martins behind him, that's Vanzantino, who will only slot into 9th as well. B-Tom down a good chunk through that first sector. Definitely was odd to see an Alpine kind of bouncing around there. But it is Etzo at the top of the field right now. Seemingly nobody on a representative lap time right now. Another one is just getting underway for Williams, so it'll be interesting to see if he can improve. Same with MacT, who's making his way through turn number 3 now. And of course, with a lot of drivers here, they're going to be putting extra fuel in here because the inters generally wear out at a lot slower rate. So you can just throw effectively 18 minutes worth of fuel in there in your car, and then go for the entirety of a session as you get more and more comfortable with some of the conditions. So we're about to go up to 18 cars on track, as we are at 17 cars on track at the moment. Excuse me. So getting very, very busy here. MacT 58.3 through the first 2 sectors as the Aston Martin makes his way into Ascari now, and it's Lurka who goes top. So Lurka by 7 thousandths for Williams jumps up to the front of the field. And immediately Rosicic goes that little bit further. Been on board with MacT for most of his lap here. So where can the Aston Martin, currently without a time on the board, Green Machine on the green compounded tires, MacT jumps up into a very respectable 4th place, about 3/10 off a provisional pole at the moment. Of course, got the Mercedes bearing down, trying to get any sort of a tow. Fight Me Now bot up, meanwhile, up 7/10 through 2 sectors as another one goes to the top of the field. So Williams really trying to dominate here as another one takes best advantage of the track conditions. Got a Sauber coming to the line now. That's a Lyrian who goes 2nd quickest. So Williams and Sauber battling at the top. Can the Ferrari in his home Grand Prix join them? He can, and he will smash that time. Fight Me Now about 3/10 clear now of the rest of the field. Can anybody else potentially go and join him? Etzo is down on this lap. He's not improving. MacT is not improving. I believe, as Soa, meanwhile, the Red Bull has joined the fray. You can see the Racing Bulls in the background. That was B-Tom, who only goes 6th fastest. Did improve by 1.3 seconds, but 7/10 back of Soa's current pole time. Meanwhile, looking further down the field, still 4 drivers without a lap time on the board yet. One of them is Nemi, who we've seen battle up at the front over the course of this season. Look at how, you can see that Red Bull continue to slide all over the place. I believe it was Stratton going 13th quickest. Muncher will slot into P11 with both of their first efforts of the day. Got a Mercedes coming to the line now. That's BXT Burnett who will go 11th quickest. So again, just trying to inch closer. Both Aston Martins looking to finish their lap. Vanzantino goes 12th fastest. MacT to the line, I believe not improving. Probably getting set up for another lap as Nemi invalidates. They are into Ascari. So the Red Bull unable. Well, one Red Bull's at the front, the other all the way at the back, and is struggling a decent bit with just finding those right moments. Rosicic, meanwhile, also in the Green Machine, but the Neon Green Machine. Of course, both Saubers having a very nice showing so far. Still need a good bit of an improvement, though, from both of them. If they want to jump up the field. Of course, just beyond the halfway point in qualifying now, 8 minutes left to go in this session, so still lots of time for drivers to find improvements, and Rosicic has found 4/10 heading into Ascari, so a very good lap here. as the track continuing to get drier as Hog Rider now. It's the McLaren jumping to the front, and just like that, Lurka in the Williams will surpass him, and Etzo goes even quicker, 26.7. So the track continuously ramping up. As you can see, the rain has let up a good bit. I believe that's Muncher jumping up to 6th quickest for Alpine. Brosic will go 3rd quickest, still though 6/10 adrift of that pole position. We'll jump to another one's Williams now, as he currently sits in P8. And you can see just how much of a, not necessarily dry line, but certainly drier line is forming. It's going to allow these drivers to carry so much more pace. Car diving into the pits. Here comes another one to the line, and he'll make it a Williams 2-3, 26.990. Very good lap time from him as Illyrian takes back provisional pole. 26.682 for the Sauber, and Fight Me Now Bot immediately puts that to rest, as it's the Ferrari back on provisional pole. Again, got a bit of a traffic jam back towards the end of the lap. Soa up 3/4 of a second through 2 sectors, now making his way around Parabolica, and might get a nice little tow from his teammate of Nemi, who finally gets on the board. He'll go 18th quickest. Soa jumps all the way up onto the front row. He gets into P2. Beatom only 9th quickest behind him. And of course, you got a number of drivers just kind of, working their way back to the pits here. I think a number of them out of fuel at this stage. You got a number of drivers diving in the pits. Of course, you got yellow flags down here on the backside of the track. Beatom kind of continuing to push away, but you can see numerous drivers kind of just diving into the pits here, trying to get those fresh tires, trying to flick there to see if we could get a delta on MacT as he blasts down into Parabolica. It certainly doesn't look like dry tire weather. We'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and keep the tire graphic up there, just to see if anybody does opt to brave it. But the track continuing to get quicker as MacT jumps up into 5th for Aston Martin. Anthrax Robin on a bit of a cooldown lap here. Another one side by side with one of the Ferraris as the Williams duo sits 7th and 8th. Beatom, I think, on a little bit more of a cooldown lap as well, as Nemi blasting down into Parabolica now. Has struggled really to get a lap time on the board as Shruz. It's a good thing that I went ahead and made sure to throw that tire graphic up there, as Tristan potentially opting for the soft, as there's a lap time from Nemi that we were expecting. 26.0 from the Red Bull driver, makes it a Red Bull 1-3, and that is a very dominant lap time to unseat Fight Me Now Bot from that provisional pole position. And of course, with time winding down, it's really going to come down to who gets that last lap on the board at the rate things are going. Starting, of course, on and out lap. You got Mudev back out and on and out lap. So now I think if you're a driver that has not stopped, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much fuel is potentially in some of these fuel some of these drivers took when they initially went out of the pits. Because if you can keep going, if you can hold some of that tire temp, that could be very, very beneficial. Of course, you don't want to overheat, especially with the rain continuing to lighten, and just how much of, again, very much on that racing line. It is rather dry. Tristan, meanwhile, has come out of the pits as Anthrax Robin invalidates there through Ascari. So we'll jump to him real quick. Of course, we got one Ferrari up in 2nd. You got another braving it on the soft compound tire. Now, of course, the rain is still falling here, so we'll see how exactly he does at getting it slowed down here. As that Ferrari seems, at least decently dialed in under braking, as Illyrian goes 2nd quickest. But I think those softs are a massive game, but you can see just how much that rear end is stepping out on him. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on some of that. Nemi getting set for another lap. Illyrian getting set for another lap. MacT, we'll see here if the Aston Martin driver is on a bit of more of a push or a cooldown lap here. As he hits that next sector timing marker, he's up half a second. So MacT pushing hard. Got 7 teams currently in the top 8. And MacT is going to be looking to get Aston Martin further up the order here. Of course, does have Tristan on that soft compound tire ahead of him. 3 minutes, though, left to go in qualifying. So time is winding down here, and it doesn't look like anybody else is going to brave it. MacT to the line. MacT goes fastest by about 1/10 of a second over Nemi. All right, so it's now Aston Martin who holds serve as time winds down. Again, 2 minutes and 40 seconds left to go in qualifying here. Etzo, 6th fastest right now, just getting underway on the lap. Keep an eye on the likes of Lurka and B-Tom a bit further down the order. We'll jump to Tristan here. Try and get an idea. As he crosses that first sector time marker, about even with his first lap time. So is there something potentially to the soft? Is there enough of a dry line that it's potentially worth it? As he makes his way through the Lesmos, it just doesn't look like it. Just has to be too cautious there. As Vincentino jumps up to 4th, GTR Lion follows and goes into 5th. Meanwhile, Tristan really struggling with that rear end. Slick's definitely not seeming to be the way to go. Down 1.6 seconds. Has time for 1, maybe 2 more goes. But certainly is not in a great position. Mudev underway. Rosticic goes fastest. And Lurka instantly unseats him with a smoking 25.294. As Lurka now half a second clear over the rest of the field on a fresh set of intermediate compound tires. As all 20 drivers now out on track, so it is a very, very busy Monza circuit. Tristan, I believe, has gone round down at Parabolica. We got a McLaren coming to the line. That is Etzo, who will go to the top of the order, 24.964. So it's now the debutant taking provisional pole with just about 1 minute left to go. We got a Sauber coming to the line. That's Illyrian, not improving so far, and will try to push for on this final lap. It's not Vincentino coming to the line. It's MacT, who I believe is just getting underway. We'll jump to, I believe we'll try to jump to that we'll jump to the Haas of Mudev pushing to the line. But of course, he'll have another go of things. Does get a lap time on the board, but it's only 19th for him. Again, 19 drivers trying to battle it out here for pole position here in the rain in Monza. Number of drivers invalidated. Fight me now by Etzo. Going to be trying to push to get extra laps in. I don't think they'll have the time, though. It's going to be very tight. And who's going to ultimately have a final shot? And it's a big parking lot down there at Parabolica. Lurka trying to get around drivers. How much time is left? Hogrider has disconnected, so we'll try to get him back in briefly. I'll keep you on board with the Williams man, who we've seen jump to the front a number of times. Fight Me Now Bot, only second fastest, and 2-1. That is qualifying over, so Hogrider will be 6th fastest. MacT improving through 2 sectors, but he's only up 2/10. He's going to have to find some sort of magic here in the final sector to have any shot at provisional pole. The Aston Martin through the final corner, being followed by the Red Bull of Soa just behind. Both drivers going to be looking to jump up the order. Illyrian, 4th quickest as he crosses the line. Here comes MacT to the line. He'll take 4th back. Where will the Red Bull slot in? Soa jumps up into the 4th as that position trades hands a number of times. Got a Mercedes coming to the line now. Keep an eye for when that crosses the line. That's BXT jumping up into a very respectable P7 for the moment. But it's going to come down to could come down to who puts the last lap on the board. Muncher, 9th quickest for Alpine. Here comes his teammate to the line. That's GTR Lion pushing the line. That's going to be a very good I'd look like a very good lap time, but it's only good enough for P9, but still a top 10 start. Very good. Vincentino crosses the line. 7th quickest. Rosticic dies out of the way. That's the Red Bull of Nemi pushing around that final corner, only up 4/10. Can he find any sort of magic in the final sector to potentially jump further up the field? He'll go 3rd quickest. Very good lap time there. Lurka, though, coming through Parabolica to the line. Does he have enough for provisional pole? He does not. He'll only go 4th quickest, and B-Tom at the end of the session will jump up into 2nd. But it is Etzo on LSR debut here, taking provisional pole and the point in these very, very tricky conditions. And so they may be the McLaren in his first LSR race, going up against the multi-time LSR champ down to turn 1. So it should be very, very interesting to watch as McLaren and Racing Bulls will go at it. But again, very interesting top 10. You can see just how much those times dropped. Of course, he even had Tristan going out there with a gamble on the soft. Going to be interesting to see what happens here. But of course, there is your grid. Top 14 separated by only a second is very impressive as well. But it's Etzo, Bitom, Bont, Nemi, Lurka, Soa, Mekti, Illyrian, Vanzantino. And BXT will be your starting 10 as we move into the race, not as much of the feature race. But of course, with everybody really running dry setups in this one, I think we're going to see some, potentially some of the, don't want to say true pace shakeout. Robin will be hanging in the Christmas tree tonight. So somebody is not happy with his first go of things. But again, there's still lots of time to be able to make that up. It's, of course, a lot to gain, a lot to lose down here at what is, I think, certainly the most dangerous turn one in online let me try that again. Certainly a lot to gain, a lot to lose at what is the most dangerous turn one in sim racing. Of course, definitely a big thing to keep an eye on there. Again, going to be, not wanting to see any incidents, but certainly wouldn't be unheard of, especially just with that concertina effect further down the field. Really want to be starting towards the front of the grid. But also, that start is very important, as it's still a rather long run compared to a lot of other circuits down into that first braking zone. So making sure you get off the grid nicely is very, very crucial. Of course, with the track really tightening up for that chicane, 2 wide is manageable, 3 wide, and you're getting yourself into trouble. We'll also have to see if anybody does opt for the escape road, which, of course, we would love to be possible in these games. Hogrider is requesting an invite. I thought I already sent him one. Suppose I did not. We'll go ahead and send him another as we look to get underway shortly. So there is the invite sent. So Hogrider has joined. So that may have, if that did start the countdown, we're right on time. So it should be about 30 seconds now, and we should get underway. So of course, if any drivers are listening, feel free to ready up at this time. But probably looking at a one-stop here. Of course, it will be a little bit challenging. Optimal pit time, from what I've seen right now, it's actually to pit a little bit earlier than the max life of the medium compound tire. I'm seeing a lap 10 to 12, really more lap 12 as the point where that pit window really opens up for the medium to hard one-stop. I think it'll be definitely interesting as well to see what tire everybody opts to go for as we blast down to turn one here in a couple of seconds. You got that countdown trill going. And of course, we're going to jump right to the grid and right to the racing here in LSR Group 1, round number 7 at Monza. And we are underway, and it seems to be a good getaway from a large part of the order. You got a Mercedes with a good jump there in the background, but it's going to be Etzo with a good jump, able to cover off the drivers behind. Bitom going to have to close up behind him. You got, of course, everybody going behind Etzo's round. Etzo goes round at turn 1, so that'll promote Fight Me Nowbot to the lead. Got a McLaren round as well. That's Hogrider getting spun. But a bit of carnage further behind the field, and that was the kind of thing that I was mentioning, with 3 wide being very, very risky. Of course, there are your predicted race strategies, so tire wear certainly projected to be very high, but of course everybody with fresh tires here. Number of drivers going off the track. I believe this is Anthrax Robin having to cut the chicane to try and keep out of an incident. But it's Fight Me Nowbot, the biggest beneficiary of that start, as he now leads and on a set of hard compound tires. So that is a stellar start from the Ferrari in his home race, or in his team's home race, I should say, to be able to take advantage of that start and take the lead of this race. Of course, Etzo still in the race despite getting tagged. He's only in 8th. Big tank slapper there in the background. That's the Mercedes of BXT going well off track and somehow managing to keep that out of the wall, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll start lap number 2, and it is Fight Me Now Bot with the lead. You can see everybody making their way through Parabolica as you got the long train now down into turn number 1. You got Lurka starting to size up a potential move on Illyrian as they get tight. You can see, of course, the field fanning out, trying to potentially find any moves into turn 1, but everybody gonna have to hold station 4 now. Of course, DRS not activated into turn 1 just yet. Yellow flags. That's for Tristan, who's gone round. Tristan has got spun. So he's now fallen to the back, potentially getting caught up with Hog Rider there. The rest of the field going to be pushing on. Fight Me Now Bot trying to push away from B-Tom here. As we take a look again at some of those possible race strategies. The game saying the 2-stop might be the way to go. If tire wear is in fact higher than expected, it is theoretically possible, though, to do a 1-stop. It'll be interesting to see if anybody takes that gamble. See everybody, as all the cars snaking their way through the Ascari chicane. Red Bulls with a very nice start. They're sitting 4th and 5th. A lot of the field just, staying tight for right now. Yeah, of course, Tristan getting caught up there in a lap 1 incident, and everybody will come across the line to start lap number 3. And you got basically the entire field now in a DRS train. You got TY getting past Muncher on the exit of Parabolica. Really the first racing overtake we've seen so far. You got Lurka trying to sneak a move there on Illyrian. Can he get it done on the exit? He's going to have to really push here. Does he have the battery to potentially send this around the outside at the Curva Grande? He'll have the inside here as we head down into turn number 4, and he'll get that move done. Very nice move there from Lurka to be able to get that door open and climb up into 6th place. Fight Me Now Bot, though, continues to lead and has now opened up a bit of a gap behind to B-Tom. So B-Tom potentially put under pressure, made a bit of a mistake. He's dropped back to 2nd. And so that's allowed Fight Me Now Bot to now break that DRS gap. And Fight Me Now Bot is now just trying to take off here. He's got a 2-second gap behind. So is something potentially wrong for B-Tom? Or is he potentially just out of ERS? B-Tom potentially ran out of ERS. He got Nemi looking to make a move on MacT there into Parabolica. As Fight Me Now Bot sets a new fastest lap of the race. Nemi and MacT, though, both with DRS, and they're both going to go to the inside of B-Tom. Nemi, though, going to be throwing a little bit of a block there on MacT, but he'll slide his way past B-Tom. So Nemi now up into 2nd place, and Nemi will be doing the job of chasing down the rest of the field. Just jumping on board with B-Tom here, as he's now losing another position. As B-Tom just has no ERS. B-Tom is basically out of ERS here. And so I think that may have been the big difference that's now allowed Fight Me Now Bot to start to make a breakaways. He's still got about 40%. You can see the Red Bull there in the background. But it's still going to be tough for Nemi to be able to make any gains on Fight Me Now Bot now that the gap has opened up with B-Tom potentially starting to struggle a little bit. You can see, again, this kind of chase pack, this big chase pack, trying to go to work here. As you got P2 all the way down to P18 in a big old train with each other. Of course, everybody's starting the race on either the medium or the hard compounded tire. Etzo, is going to try to go down the inside of Rostachis there at Parabolica. Of course, both will have DRS here on the exit. It does look like Etzo able to get that done. Rasta will back off. You got B-Tom having to defend now from MacT. And yeah, B-Tom just seemingly struggling here. I'm not sure exactly what it could come down to. perhaps the V-Carb driver taking a little bit of different setup as Lurka going down the inside of Soa as we head into turns 4 and 5. Very brave, bold move there. As the hard tire seemingly continuing to improve. Vanzantino, I think, trying to do the same thing there on Anthrax Robin, who potentially made a bit of a mistake on the exit of turn number 5. And that allowed the Aston Martin to slide up into 12th place as he goes chasing after potential points. Gap for the lead, though, up to 2.6 seconds as Fight Me Now Bot has just been able to pull away in the early part of this race. I think it'll be definitely interesting to see how strong the potential undercut is. As another one first to pick up a time penalty. Let's see, little bits of the field starting to spread out just a little bit. You got Anthrax Robin starting to fall back. You got battle between both Haas and both Alpine. But of course, they're out of the points, and Anthrax Robin at risk of falling too far back. And Anthrax Robin diving into the pits here. Did the Haas get damage? Anthrax Robin may have gotten damage with GTR Lion. So that may be the cause of both of these drivers coming into pit here in the early stages of this race. It's only lap number 6 that they're diving into the pits for that change. Nemi, meanwhile, has been unable to break away from B-Tom, who's now recovered ERS nicely. He's back up to 40%. So he's already trying to get back to work here. And of course, that battle between what was likely GTR Lion and Anthrax Robin has really been a detriment to the likes of Muncher, Hogrider, Mudev, another one, and Stratting, as their battle is now off of that points train. So you can see just how crucial that one mistake is in a race that's going to be run as tightly as this, especially thanks to the help of DRS. Which, of course, we're only seeing in this game now, as in real life, we will not see it anymore. Soa, meanwhile, next to pick up a 3-second time penalty for track limits, as he tries to chase down Lurka. Of course, he's got Etso chasing him down, and he might be under threat here as we blast down into turn number 1. Hogrider, meanwhile, has jumped Muncher, as we've been watching battles further up the field here. And you can see just some of that issue with not having that DRS. You got Rosticic trying to go defensive on Ty. But Ty going to have that inside there at turn 2. It's going to be the outside now for Curva Grande, but the Mercedes able to get it done. As we've seen Haas and Alpine go to war, now it's Sauber and Mercedes. BXT, meanwhile, trying to make it 2 moves, but not going to get squeezed that little bit by Rosticic. Just going to put him under threat here from Vanzantino, who's going to try to go down the inside at the Lesmos. Bit of lag there from BXT as he tries to give space. Still going to be side by side. BXT going to have enough room to stay out in front, but he's going to have to close that gap now. He will have DRS to assist him in doing that, but at risk of falling out of DRS range again, and that would take him out of a point-scoring potential. But BXT doing a nice job of sticking with it. Lurka, meanwhile, continuing to start to put pressure now on Mac T, as everybody continuing to blast on for what, as of right now, is already looking like it's going to be a very fast race, as we're already on lap number 8 here. But you got Lurka tucked up right underneath the wing of Mac T. The Williams going to be looking to the inside. Of course, he's on the hard compound tire. Etso and Illyrian both opting to dive into the pits here on lap number 8. It's going to be side by side. And the Aston Martin going to yield, going to be trying to look for the switchback, but well defended by Lurka, keeping the Aston Martin behind. Lurka up into P4, and now the chance to go hunting after B-Tom. Of course, with a lot of the tight racing going on further down the field, hasn't let me talk about Fight Me Now Bot too much, who has raced brilliantly here and has put himself in an incredible position as just keeping it smooth, keeping it controlled, and has been able to just pull away and effectively just time trial this for himself as 4 seconds behind. So you can see the Red Bull and the V-Carb just appearing there in the background as we switch camera shots. And that gap's only likely to keep increasing over the course of the rest of this race. Again, you're still under threat, I think, going for more of an overcut. But of course, with Lurka and Nemi behind, that could work to his advantage. As again, just building that gap little by little to the drivers on that same compound is going to be more and more crucial as this race continues. Meanwhile, the gap behind continues to open up. Got B-Tom closing on Nemi. Going to try to go around the outside. The sister teams going at it. Bit of a lockup there from Nemi. B-Tom and Nemi actually going to get connected here. That's going to force him to understeal a little bit and give Nemi an opportunity to redo that pass, and he will. So a little bit of EA collision physics there as another one has disconnected. Muncher, meanwhile, diving into the pits now for a fresh set of hard compound tires. I'll leave you here with the battle for P2 as I try to re-invite another one. Excuse me for one moment here. Again, apologies, just some of the struggle at times behind online league racing. Another one may have rejoined because I don't see an opportunity to re-invite him. So we'll keep an eye on that. The battle for 2 still raging on as we get closer and closer to that pit stop phase opening. Again, only a 27 laps here around Monza, so a pretty high lap count. Of course, last week at Singapore, though, was 31 for a slower track. So I think certainly going to be a little bit of a breath of fresh air for a number of these drivers. But again, four-way battle for P2, the gap up to 5.2 seconds now. I think the big thing that's making the difference is that Fight Me Now bot continually has ERS to spare, whereas everybody back here is trying to use it to get past each other. They're dumping their resources. That just doesn't leave them with any to be able to close that gap up to the leader. Soa remains in P6 ahead of TY. Rosticic, meanwhile, is the next one to dive into the pits for a set of hard compound tires. Etzo, though, will be the one to lead on that early stop strategy. Definitely going to be interested to see if that McLaren is thinking more along the lines of a two-stop. We'll see how many people follow. Another one has managed to rejoin. Definitely lost a good bit of time, though. As Lurka closing in on B-Tom here. Trying to put the V-Carb under threat, but not able to get a move done as of right now as we head into Ascari. Can he get it done on the exit, though, as those hards going to continue to get stronger and stronger. We've seen Lurka make a bunch of moves here in the early part of the race. He's going to look to the inside. By the time they get into Parabolica, it will be Lurka comfortably up in front. Lurka up into third. It's the top three now all on the hard compound tire. Anthrax Robin, 3-second time penalty for track limits as Soa and Ty battle side by side here. It's a Red Bull very wide there in the background. Is both going to dive into the pits. Soa going to really missed that braking point as Ty got it slowed down ahead of him. And so Soa will get a 10-second penalty for speeding the pit lane, and he will retire here. So our first retirement of the session will be Soa. So we'll throw yellow flags. That's also a red, it's a Ferrari deep, that goes deep at Parabolica there. As Tristan gets caught up in an incident, and he's got a puncture. Tristan got a puncture. So that's why he's around the Ferrari with a rear left tire going down. So does that put any other drivers now at risk? So Shruz here on not even lap, with 10 lap old medium tires gets a puncture. So is that just indicative of how quickly these medium tires will start to fall apart? And how will that cause any drivers to now contemplate a swap to a different compound? Tristan has managed to keep it going, and I think will be able to dive into the pits here. Imagine the Ferrari will be retiring. But certainly an interesting thing to consider as we start lap number 12 now. And you can see B-Tom and MacT really starting to struggle compared to those hard compound tires up in front of them. So we'll keep with them here. Stratton dives into the pits. So he thinks those tires are done. But a lap 11 puncture, certainly not what I was expecting. Rosticic, meanwhile, jumps to the front, top of the order. Or jumps up with a fastest lap, excuse me. You know, you got a big battle going on for, what is it, 8th place, where Etzo leads that train. But if you're these front runners, if you're B-Tom, if you're MacT, is now the time when you pull that trigger. Especially after just driving past a man who picked up a puncture. Is it time to dive into the pits, get on that hard compound tire, and get to work? Of course, Etzo continuing to lead that chunk of drivers who's already made a stop. They're likely going to have to stop again. But again, they're not going to be at a major risk here as we get to the end of the race. Nemi dives into the pits, and Nemi speeds. So Nemi with a pit lane speeding, and he's getting off the hards. So Nemi swapping off the hards as Nemi, B-Tom, MacT all dive into the pits. Let's keep an eye on Etzo as he comes around Parabolica, as it looks like he's going to get all of them. So we're going to see how much that undercut could impact the race here, as Etzo will make it past 2 of the 3. He's going to go around the outside of Nemi with that extra straight line speed. And so Etzo now leads this chase pack, but I think McLaren certainly gaining for a 2-stop. Nemi, meanwhile, has slapped on another set of hards, so Nemi's on a 2-stop, and he'll have to stop again, and on that stop, he'll have that 10-second time penalty to serve. And so that's absolutely massive for his race, especially now that he's caught up behind Etzo's rear wing. Of course, Tristan just staying in the race. Yellow flags behind. That's for a big incident. That's an Alpine who's gone. Actually, no, sorry, that's a Williams. That's another one. And it's another one with a puncture, I think. Is it another one with a puncture? No, he just made a mistake. It looked briefly like he may have gotten a puncture. Fight Me Now bot now dives into the pits. And it's only lap 14. It's the start of lap 14, and it's looking like it's going to be a big gamble here from the race leader, swapping onto a set of medium compound tires. Who's going to try to split the race in half. Of course, he'll have a nice bit of clean air to work with now. As there goes Mudev's Haas. Etzo just coming around Parabolica now, going to be put under threat from Nemi and all the drivers behind with DRS. Here comes the Red Bull first of all, though. Again, that Ferrari back marker is Tristan, just effectively trying to stay in this race in case something happens. Of course, is ghosted. Another one, 10 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, and that'll be another one session over. So a second retirement here at Monza. Both, however, are manual. Nemi closing, gonna take a peek to the inside there, just trying to move around in the mirrors of Etzo, but unable to find anything there. Is definitely an interesting look there, as you got a bit of a merging Ferrari and Red Bull, as the back marker just trying to push out in front. It's definitely going to be interesting to keep an eye on there. Fight Me Now bot, though, comfortably underway. So I think the interesting thing to consider now, could Fight Me Now bot be potentially thinking 2-stop? As that yellow flag for the Williams is not for Lurka, it's for the retired another one. But Lurka continues to stay out here at the start of lap number 15. So I think, does Fight Me Now bot potentially know something we don't? He will have DRS here, and it'll dispatch Mudev with absolute ease on that fresh set of medium compound tires. But I think you gotta consider some sort of risk, especially with Tristan's puncture. Nemi, meanwhile, finally will get past Etzo. He'll go to the inside, and he'll get that move done. So Nemi finally back through. B-Tom, of course, in 7th. Now is going to have the same job as he's worked past Ty. MacT also in a solid spot. He's up into the top 10, but a bit further afield of those drivers out in front of him, specifically B-Tom, who he did box with, as he's now stuck in a bit of a sour sandwich here between Illyrian and Rostachich in the early stages. Fight Me Now bot, meanwhile, has dispatched Hog Rider as well. Very simply, very smoothly. So now it'll be Fight Me Now bot who keeps blasting away. Lurka, meanwhile, coming through the Parabolica once again. Is this going to be the lap where we see the Williams dive into the pits? It will not. So Lurka continues to stay out as we start lap number 16. And that gap down under 12.5 seconds. Fight Me Now bot closing with a ton of speed here. I imagine he's going to be setting a new fast lap, and he will, 19.788. As Mudev, actually no, that's Hog Rider diving into the pit, so that'll clear a driver out of the way for a number of cars here. Gets out of the way for Nemi, gets out of the way for Etzo, Bitam, Tai. I'll promote Illyrian as well, up into the top 10. He's got the War of Green is continuing here. Here comes MacT looking on the outside of Rosticic, trying to slide up in 8th place. Going to try to cut him back here. Going to try to cut him back twice, actually. Can he get that better exit, though? Of course, fresher tires for MacT means he's going to try to hang it around the outside here at Curva Grande. There's both green machines as they appear. Who's going to be braver? Onto the brakes into turn 4. It's going to be side by side. A bit of contact there, but it's MacT with a very nice move to slide up into 8th place. And, of course, that'll push both drivers back more towards Vanzantino now. So we'll see if the Aston Martins try to work together, try and maximize their points haul today. Of course, you got Etzo still tied to the back of Nemi effectively, as Tai next to receive 3 seconds for track limits. Lurka will dive into the pits now. So Lurka finally chooses the time to get off the hard compounded tire. As Fight Me Now starts his 3rd lap on that set. It's going to be mediums as well for Lurka. So Lurka's going to be right at that 11 lap point. There goes Nemi by him. There goes Etzo and Bitam, Tai. Where is MacT? Will MacT appear to potentially jump Lurka? He will not, but you can see the other Aston Martin in the background, Vanzantino, trying to jump up into the top 10. Very nice move there, under braking to slide up in front of Illyrian. So there's Vanzantino using the fresh tires to his advantage. Now that will promote Fight Me Now Bot back into the lead of this race. And of course, Mudev still yet to pit here. Of course, you got Nemi and Tristan effectively inside of each other right now. So certainly an interesting thing going on there. But if you're Fight Me Now Bot, I gotta ask, are you thinking it is a 2-stop race for everybody here? Is that potentially some of the reason that we saw such an early swap off of the hard compound tire? I think specifically as Anthrax Robin retires, that's a crash in Sector 2. That's going to bring out the safety car. And so that is a big change. That's going to potentially bring Tristan back into this race. As his teammate boxes, Mudev will box. I imagine everybody going to be diving into the pits here. This is going to save Nemi. So this will be great for him. As Bitam trying to get moves done. They're 3 wide on pit lane entry. And that's Mercedes in the wall. As they race in the pit lane, that's a Mercedes in the wall. And Tai is out. Tai is out of this race as everybody tried to race to pit lane entry. And nowhere to go for Tai. And he comes out the worst. Wow. That's a terrible way to end a debut in a league from a situation completely out of your control. This has worked out decently well for Lurka, at least, as he inherits the lead. As everybody behind him now is able to take the advantage of the fresh compounded tire. I think the biggest winner here is Mudev, who's now all the way up into 3rd place after staying out that entire time. He's been the biggest winner here, as he's on for a 1-stop. Tristan, meanwhile, picks up a 3-second for track limits under safety car there. Never something you want to see happen, of course. But, of course, that's definitely good to see Tristan still stick this race out. Of course, he's going to have to keep pushing here. He's got a long way to go to catch this pack. But should definitely now come down to the wire as we look to get everything going. Tristan is actually going to box here. He's going to be at risk. Yeah, Tristan's not going to be able to make his way back out. Tristan should have kept going here. That's going to be a big loss. So we'll jump on board with Lurka. The Mercedes safety car going to have to slow the pack way down. The Ferrari has been released. It's going to be a question of, can Tristan beat the safety car out? He gets released, and I think he's just about done it. And he has managed to beat that Mercedes safety car. A la Lightning McQueen. Racing his way out of the pit lane and does manage to stay on the lead lap. Of course, has a long way to go. So, of course, hopefully, for his sake, that safety car window is fairly extended, gives him a chance to recatch the field. Of course, now, with us being in a bit more of a calmer position under safety car, going to let us get a look at some of the position changes over the course of this race. And you can see what I meant about Mudev having an incredible, doing an incredible job at holding on to those hard compound tires to put himself in the position to take advantage. But he started in 19th place today. He's jumped all the way up into P3 and is now on equal punching with everybody around him, which is going to be massive as we get further into this race. I think, of course, Lurka starting P5, now leading, of course. I think definitely going to be under pretty constant threat from Fight Me Now Bot, who has shown just eons of pace, can ace more than everybody else around. Rosicic also having a nice race. He's up 4 spots. But, of course, everything going to come down to these last couple of laps. But going to be a bit more of a sprint to the end. Of course, rolling start this time. This will not be this lap. I think it'll be interesting to see if it is the next lap. We'll see how much, again, safety car being extended there. That's a McLaren diving into the... Actually, no, it looked like Etzo was about to dive into the pits there for a second from that panning camera angle. Which is why I was so surprised for a second, but it is the McLaren opting to stay out here. I think definitely interesting to note how many drivers opted for the hard compound. B-Tom, Etzo, MacT, BXT, Vanzantino. I think perhaps, certainly, and I think rightfully so, skewed a little bit by that opening stint where the medium didn't seem all that great, especially compared to Fight Me Now Bot's pace on the hard. But after that pit stop where Fight Me Now Bot was able to, really easily, really simply dispatch all the cars in front of him, which really wasn't that much, and of course, with a big tire wear differential, I think definitely going to be an interesting thing to try and keep an eye on. Tristan, of course, 40 seconds back from the field now. And of course, if he can manage to recatch the field, which again, there's the opportunity to. Just how quickly that gap is coming down. Will we be safety car in this lap? We will not for the moment. Actually, no, safety car is in this lap. So Tristan's got to hustle now to recatch the field, but it is Lurka with control. You can see the Mercedes safety car vanishing off into the distance. Lurka keeping that pace a little bit higher. Of course, he does have that tire wear disadvantage, continuing to keep that pace hot. He's going to have to slow it down a little bit to let that Mercedes safety car have the opportunity to dive into the pits. Of course, doesn't want to keep it too slow. And of course, Tristan heading through Ascari right now, racing to catch the field. And we are ready to go racing, so when does Lurka opt to take off? He chooses to go now, and it's a good jump from the Williams as he appears. We go back racing here at the start of lap number 21. And we're back under green flag conditions. Good restart there. As B-Tom gets a good jump on Mudev. You got a number of drivers trying to get some tire temperature. B-Tom trying to go around the outside of Mudev down at turn number 1. And he'll get that move done. So good work from B-Tom, keeping those tires in the window where he wants them. As now he's up into 3rd place. But does he have the pace to potentially go after Fight Me Now Bot and Lurka? Of course, Bot took the lead on the first lap after B-Tom from P2 and the pole sitter Etzo, who's now back into P5 after getting tagged in the early stages, as Hog Rider got caught up in an incident there. So Tristan now up into 15th place. But 4.5 tenths is the gap as we head down into the Ascari chicane here. Fight Me Now Bot really dealing with dirty air for the first time in this race. Really utilizing all the track limits there. Not sure if that was a warning, but stratting picks up his third. That's 3 seconds for him. But we'll start lap number 22, and look at how tight B-Tom is to the rear wing of that Williams. Of course, the Tifosi all in the stands, clad in scarlet as DRS enabled. Going to be willing this man to chase down the Williams in front of him. Got another Italian team in V-Carb trying to do their thing as well with B-Tom. You got Etzo looking to make a move on Mudev, and there's contact. And so Mudev going to be dropping down the field. And now Mudev just going to tuck into the back of this, as I think Etzo just tagged him. I think Etzo sadly tagged him. That's going to drop Mudev all the way down into 14th place. Make that 15th, make that 16th. As the Haas, I think, rightfully frustrated at what just occurred. Definitely looked like an odd situation there. And it's the Haas who ends up paying the price. DRS now for Fight Me Now bot, heading down into the Ascari chicane. Not going to allow him to make a move this time on the Williams. So Fight Me Now bot does get super tight there. Can he do anything on the exit? Nemi picks up a 3-second time penalty for track limits, but he's up into P7. And of course, he had to serve a 10-second time penalty on that last pit stop. Fight Me Now bot now tucked right up under Lurka's rear wing as we head through the Parabolica, and going to be full attack now down into turn 1 from both of these drivers. The rear wing going to open, and B-Tom starting to put Fight Me Now bot under pressure. As within 6/10, as it's 3 cars within 6/10 here, you can see Etzo trying to defend in the background. MacT though going to swing around the outside and get up into P4. So it's the Aston Martin now looking to have continuing to try and improve here. As now he has a chance to go chasing after a pole position. Mudev will retire in the pit lane. So certainly sad to see his race end like that. But I think certainly going to be frustrating there as he has disconnected. Lap 23 now. Is this the lap where Fight Me Now bot will retake the lead? And remember, Lurka does have that 1-lap tire disparity compared to the drivers around him. Remember, we saw Tristan get a puncture on lap 11. Of course, that was with heavier fuel. That was when sitting in dirty air for a solid chunk of time. But will that be a factor? Fight Me Now bot within a quarter of a second, within 2/10. Will we see him go to the inside of Parabolica? Lurka preparing to defend. He'll hold back for now, but how much will that dirty air be a factor as they blast through Parabolica? It's going to be less of an impact this time. It's only a 3/10 gap now, whereas we've seen it up to 5/10, up to 4 or 5/10 in previous laps. 3/10 the gap, 2/10 the gap. Here comes Fight Me Now bot. Lurka taking that middle of the track. Fight Me Now bot going to go to the inside anyways. Fight Me Now bot, there's contact, and it's Fight Me Now bot getting his elbows out, getting past Lurka, and retaking the lead here in Monza. And B-Tom going to be looking to take advantage as well. He'll try to sweep around the outside of the Williams. They'll battle wheel to wheel through turn 3 as we head down into turn 4 and 5. It's going to be B-Tom with that inside. He'll make the most of that opportunity, and he'll slide up into 2nd place. And so Lurka in 2 braking zones loses 2 positions. Of course, B-Tom definitely getting his elbows out there. I think, had Lurka tried to stick that side by side, I think, we'd be saying something a little bit different about that overtake. But it ends up just being more of a block pass from Fight Me Now bot, who's now taking advantage of that clean air, trying to pull away. He's got that gap just over a second. Can he hold on to it, though, through Parabolica? That could be the difference in who wins this race. Up to 1.1 seconds. And Fight Me Now bot, who's shown so much dominant pace so far in this race, has managed to break DRS. That rear wing on the V-car behind does not open up. And with 3 laps to go, Fight Me Now bot with an opportunity to start to pull away here, as he did in the opening stint of this race before he boxed on lap number 13. And of course, with that safety car, that just finished up 4 laps ago, has still had to fight his way back, back past Lurka, had to defend from B-Tom behind, and is now still in a great position to go on and try and win this race. Beatom, though, not relenting, has managed to close that gap up nicely. I think deployed a lot of ERS there, as you can see. That rear wing open up on the V-Carb. Of course, V-Carb having history winning here. Most recently, of course, with Pierre Gasly. It's potentially the only... Actually, no, because they also did it with Sebastian Vettel. So certainly not unheard of for what is now V-Carb to be on that top step. And this time, as we run down in turn 1 with 2 laps to go, Beatom is within DRS range. And so there is the rear wing open on Beatom's car. But time is running out. Lurka continuing to just kind of hold there in the background, trying to give himself an opportunity. Macti has continued to hold off Etzo as they battle for P4. Definitely keep an eye on this fight in the background. He's got so many cars, super tight together. Hog Rider going to dive into the pits, though. I believe that's his race over, as he will retire from the session. So definitely, certainly a bit disappointing to see there. Beatom continuing to try and put the pressure on. Fight me now, bot. The gap's now down to 0.6. And Beatom still showing so much pace here as we head through both Ascaris, and it's DRS once again for Beatom. 0.6 is the gap as we head down into the Ascari chicane, which is where we've seen Fight Me Now Bot really start to open up the gap, and look at how much that's expanding. 0.7, 3/4 of a second, and Beatom picks up a little bit on the exit. Once they get out of it, it's a little bit, it's pretty close to even. But it's all but last gasp now as we round Parabolica for the penultimate time. We will be starting lap number 27, and here we go, down into turn 1 for the final time. The Ferrari that's led for a vast majority of this race, going to be looking to finish the deal. And into turn 1, he's got a very comfortable gap, half a second, despite the DRS behind of Beatom, and gets it done. 1 DRS zone left to defend. Etzo continuing to put the pressure on Macti, but that gap's opening up as well on the exit of turn 2. You got, I believe that was potentially Illyrian and Vanzantino getting connected there. So that's taking them out of a potential battle for P4, depending on how the cards fall in that fight. But we'll stick with the leaders here. Beatom has closed up. He's within 1/4 of a second now, but going to be experiencing so much dirty air as we get into the final DRS zone of this race. How much do you have left in the tank? 0.4 is the gap. Yellow flags in Sector 2. That's for Rosticic, who's gone round. But at the end of the DRS zone, it's Beatom, who doesn't quite have enough yet. And it's been Fight Me Now Bot, who's dominated the majority of this race as we've gone to dry conditions. Heading into Parabolica for the final time. And the Tifosi will rise and salute Fight Me Now Bot here as he rounds the final corner. It's the Tifosi who will be on top. It's Fight Me Now Bot who wins the Italian Grand Prix. Beatom will come across the line to finish second. Lurka in third. Macti with a great try to finish fourth. Got a good big battle going on there. It'll be Vanzantino in eighth. It's Etzo, the pole sitter, on debut, still coming home to finish a very, very nice 5th place, followed by BXT, Nemi, Vanzantino, Illyrian, and on his LSR return, GTR Lion as well, walking away with a point for Alpine. But certainly was a very enjoyable race to commentate over there. There's, of course, the podium ceremony here shortly. As you can see, the Ferrari man on top. For what is, if I am not mistaken, his first win this season. Of course, taking 26 out of a possible 27 maximum points, as we do give a point for pole position. Vanzantino, though, taking driver of the day. Most overtakes, though, was Illyrian. Of course, taking a look at the overall results, Fight Me Now Bot winning by half a second over Beatom. I guess, again, Lurka with a very solid result, taking away 15 points there. And then Macti, Etzo, BXT, Nemi, Vanzantino, Illyrian, and GTR Lion round out your top 10. We'll go ahead and get the points results for myself later. But again, hopefully you enjoyed that race, because I certainly did. Definitely was was very intriguing from start to finish. Of course, definitely be sure to tune in tomorrow for Group 2 at this very same circuit. And of course, we got one more race ace before we go on a brief break for the Christmas holiday. So be sure to tune in next week at the same time as Group 1 heads to Jeddah for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So got going from one temple of speed to another as we head to the very fast Jeddah Corniche circuit. But of course, hopefully you have all enjoyed. Of course, I've been Vacant Haddock. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.